This is a Sports Catastrophe production.
Hey there, how there, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to another Sports Catastrophe on this date. And on this day, April the 5th, 1993, the two newest baseball teams in the National League were ready to play ball. I know I've done videos on the Marlins and the Rockies and the expansion draft and getting into the tournament in the first place, but the fact of the matter is it was time to play ball. After spring training in Florida and Arizona, the baseball season was about to start on April the 5th, 1993. Forget the fact that Texas beat Baltimore, Atlanta narrowly beat the Cubs. Cincy beat Montreal, Yankees crushed Cleveland, Philly took care of Houston, Boston took care of Kansas City, and Oakland beat up on Detroit. The two main games were in Florida and Queens. The Marlins started off life in the daytime against the LA Dodgers in front of 42,000 fans at Joe Robbie Stadium, which was built for the Miami Dolphins but now had to be a dual purpose stadium with the Marlins moving in with the Dolphins. So the game was at 2 o'clock on ESPN, and the great Chris Berman was the man on the call. The Dodgers would send Charlie Hood. Yeah, the Dodgers would send Orel Hershiser, the legend. Orel Hershiser, he had the 59 straight scoreless innings in a season out there versus Charlie Huh, who was the knuckleballer and basically the Marlins' key pitcher and all that. One of, if not the last, knuckleballers in the league. The Dodgers had a starting lineup of Jose Offerman at short, Brett Butler at center, Darryl Strawberry right field, Eric Davis in left, Tim Wallach at third, Eric Karros at first, Mike Piazza catching, Jody Reed at second, and Orel Hershiser pitching. So yeah, Butler was a good hitter. Strawberry, the big move, and being in the drug rehabilitation thing and hopefully working. Eric Davis, the former Red, was who left Cincy, I guess, because of his problems with more shots. Tim Wallach, former Expo, Mike Piazza, catching in what would be his Rookie of the Year campaign. Jody Reed, the second baseman that the Dodgers couldn't sign, so they went after Delano Shields and, of course, traded away Pedro Martinez for him. The Marlins had Scott Poles at center, Brett Barberry at second, former Blue Jay icon with that inside the park grand slam in Boston in 1989. Junior Felix in right field, Aradis Destrade from Cuba at first base, Dave Magadan at third, Benito Santiago, he of the Padres, former Padre, at catcher, Jeff Conine, who Kansas City decided to dump off for the one of who were they trying to protect? It wasn't Seitzer. I don't know who Kansas City was trying to protect, and it bit them in the butt. David Howard, I think it was. But anyway, Jeff Conine playing left field, Walt Weiss at short, and Charlie Hood, being the pitcher. Of course, this was the National League at the time, so pitchers couldn't hit. Charlie Hood threw 3 strikes to Jose Offerman, but they looked like they were all off the plate and all that. And home plate umpire Frank Pulley, I think, was trying to give Charlie Hood a moment in Marlins history. He struck out Butler and got struck with the ground out. No score in the game until the Marlins struck for 3 in the second. Walt Weiss, with runners on first and second, with Santiago and Conine on base, hit a triple to right field that bounced around the corner. Santiago scored, Conine scored. Weiss would then score on a RBI single by Scott Pose to make it 3-0 Marlins. Benito Santiago hit an RBI single to score Destrade, make it 4-0 in the third. But the Dodgers scored 2 in the fifth on Jody Reed's RBI single to score Eric Karros and Jose Offerman with a single to score Jody Reed. Tim Wallach would then hit the first home run at Joe Robbie Stadium, although it was by opponent, hitting one to left field to make it 4-3. The Dodgers decided to replace Orel Hershiser with Roger McDowell, and the Marlins went with a pinch hitter for Charlie Hood, meaning that they needed a new pitcher too. Scott Poles would have an RBI ground out to make it 5-3. Luis Aquino came into the game for the Marlins in the seventh, and then after a single by Jody Reed, he was replaced by Joe Klink. Corey Snyder would pinch hit for the pitcher and ground out, making Ricky Trusiak the pitcher for the Dodgers. But in the bottom of the seventh, he gave up a ground ball double play that scored a run. That'd be Barbary. After a walk to Joe Strawberry, Klink was replaced by Chris Carpenter. Not the Chris Carpenter we know from the Blue Jays and Cardinals, but Chris Carpenter without an H. So he would pitch and all that. And doing well. Brian Harvey was the Marlins closer out of spring training. And he came in to face the Dodgers in the ninth. Piazza would hit a single. Jody Reed flew out. Dave Hansen would come in to pinch hit and lined out, and then Offerman struck out swinging. Marlins 6, Dodgers 3. The Marlins won their first ever game in team history. And all that. Yeah, Brian Harvey beat a future Hall of Fame closer for that role, and that was Trevor Hoffman. Bet you didn't know that Trevor Hoffman was part of the 93 Marlins, but he was. The 93 Marlins would finish 64 and 98, sixth in the NL East. I believe that's last. Right. Yeah, I think that was sixth. I think that was last. No, that was sixth. The Marlins finished sixth. The team that would they finish ahead of would actually be playing in the second game involving an expansion team. As later that day, around the same time, the Colorado Rockies, who were in as an expansion franchise, just like the Marlins, would face the New York Mets at Shea Stadium in Queens. It would be David Nied, the first ever draft pick, expansion pick in Rockies history, the guy that they stole from Atlanta, would be the starting opening day pitcher against Dwight Gooden, Dr. K, as they call him, and hopefully away from his drug problems. The starting lineups for that game were Eric Young for Colorado at second base, Alex Cole center field, Dante's Inferno and Bichette in right field. You know, he would have a son who's just as good as him. Andres Galarraga, the former Expo and Cardinal at first base. Gerald Clark at left, Charlie Hayes, former Giant at third base, and future Yankee who won the World Series for the Yankees in '96. Joe Girardi, future Yankees manager and catcher. Freddie Benavides at short, and David Need behind on the pitcher's mound. The Mets would send Vince Coleman, the former speedster of the Cardinals, who was battling some personal problems in 1993. Later on, the field, Tony Fernandez, the former Blue Jay icon, who would be later traded to the Blue Jays in June of '93. At short, Eddie Murray, the former Orioles and Dodgers power hitting first baseman. There, Bobby Bonilla in right field, the former Pirate. Howard Johnson, who won the World Series in '84 with the Tigers and '86 with the Mets at third base. Joe Orsulak at center. Jeff Kent, the man that the Blue Jays traded away to get David Cone in the '92 stretch drive. At second, Todd Hundley behind the plate. And Dwight Gooden pitching. The Rockies would not do so well in the first inning as Young, Cole, and Bichette all were out. Young had decided to bunt and went grounded out. Cole and Bichette flew out to the outfield. The first hit in Rockies history was a single by Andres Galarraga, if you must know. It was 0-0 till the bottom of the fourth when Tony Fernandez hit an RBI ground out to score Gooden, who had a base hit, which was nice. And then Bobby Bonilla struck a home run off Nied in the bottom of the fifth to lead off the fifth with a line drive to right field to make it 2-0. Butch Henry would come in to pitch to the Mets. However, Eddie Murray hit an RBI single to make it 3-0 Mets. Then Gary Wayne, the former Twin, came up to pitch the eighth for the Mets. Didn't give up any runs. Dwight Gooden would come up for the ninth and saw that Alex Cole to pop up. Dante Bichette had a single. Galarraga had a single, but unfortunately he got greedy and decided to take the extra base, but failed. Bichette did get the third base. Unfortunately for him, Gerald Clark popped out to right field, and that was the game. So game, set, match. Mets win 3-0, and the Rockies lost their first ever game in team history. Of course, the key thing was that the Rockies actually outscored their expansion brethren by winning 67 games. And just like Florida, they did not finish last in their division, their 17 division. So, of course, the NL, this was the first time since 1969 that they've expanded. In 1960, well, by 1960, they had 1961 they had 8 teams, and then in 62 they added 2 teams, the Mets and Astros, to make it 10. And then in 1969 they added 2 more with Montreal and San Diego. And now in 93 they've added 2 more teams to make it 14, just like the American League. The American League have 14, the National League has 14. We have 28 teams. The Rockies with 67 wins. The Marlins with 64. Colorado outpaced San Diego, who only had 61 wins. And the Marlins outpaced the Mets, who had 59 wins. So, yeah, the Mets thought that this would be a good magical season with all their hitting and Dwight Gooden being healthy and all that. Unfortunately, though, the Mets took a massive iceberg in 1993. The Dodgers in 93 would actually be victimized on the last. I mean, LA would actually be huge because they victimized San Francisco from winning the NL West and gave Atlanta the title by beating the Giants on the final day of the season. So, anyway, an auspicious start for the National League's newest teams. And of course, there'd be what? The National League would jump to 16 teams in 1988 when Arizona was an expansion team, but they didn't want to go through 15 teams in each league. So one of the American League teams, Milwaukee, decided to move over to the National League and make it a 16-team National League. But by 2013, the Astros would move to the American League and stay there, and then there would be an automatic interleague matchup, at least one, and everyone was happy. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Diamond.